Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I'm excited to walk you through the 26-27 FAFSA line by line. The FAFSA has gone through important updates again this year, and our goal with this presentation is to answer your questions and help make sure that you can complete the form successfully. So let's get started. The FAFSA is your free application for federal student aid. It is a standard form that collects demographic information about a student and their family. They will use that information as well as non demographic data to evaluate and calculate what's called a Student Aid Index or ASAI. The FAFSA is available annually. Beginning on October 1st, and you can access the form via paper or online in both English and Spanish. There are some important dates for the 26-27 academic year. The FAFSA is available now. So now is the time. So you want to get out there and get that completed as soon as you can because we do have some important West Virginia FAFSA deadlines coming up. The Promise Scholarship deadline is March 1st, 2026. The West Virginia Higher Education Grant deadline is April 15th, 2026. And the West Virginia Invest Grant Priority deadline is April 15th as well. So you want to make sure that you get your FAFSA filed before these very important deadlines for West Virginia state aid. There are benefits to completing the FAFSA online. If you complete online, there are built-in edits to prevent costly errors, skip logic that allows the student and or parent to skip unnecessary questions. You do not have to manually enter your federal tax information or your FTI. It's a more timely submission and corrections, and it's been more detailed with instructions and help for common questions. And you would have the ability to log in and check the status online. So it's just all around better if you file the FAFSA online. So it is the preferred method and the way that we suggest everyone to file. Before you complete the FAFSA, if you haven't already, you would need to visit studentaid.gov and create a studentaid.gov account. With your account, it will be used for FAFSA completion as well as access to certain U.S. Department of Education websites. A student and a parent must create their own studentaid.gov account, so you can't use the same email or phone number or any information. It has to be completely different. So you want to make sure you're using your own contact and demographic information when creating the account. This account may be used throughout the financial aid process, including subsequent school years. And only the owner should create the account. So you want to make sure that you create your own studentaid.gov account and keep that username and password handy because you will be using it more than once. What do you need to create an account? You will need a phone number, an email address, a social security number, and an address. There is a process for parents without a social security number to create an account, so there's an alternative verification process. There is a real-time authentication, so there's no delay on using your new studentaid.gov account to access the FAFSA form and complete it. So you can use it immediately once it's created. When you go to studentaid.gov and you click on the FAFSA form, it will take you to the FAFSA landing page. There are a couple ways that you could access the form. The first one is to start a 26-27 FAFSA form. You can edit an existing form, or you can accept an invitation to the FAFSA form as a contributor. Now, the accept an invitation is new for the 26-27 FAFSA cycle, and it's part of the new contributor invitation process, which we'll go through a little bit in more detail here later in the presentation. So what you'll want to do is click Start Form under the 26-27 FAFSA. Once you click Start Form, it's going to take you to the student login page. Now, either a student or a parent can start their portion of the FAFSA. If a student or parent receives an invitation code, then they can enter that here. But we really recommend that the student start the FAFSA form. That makes the process much easier. There's less manual input and room for errors. So we really encourage that the student start their portion first and then invite the parent to complete their portion. Once the student logs in, it's going to bring up the student consent and approval. What this does is it's going to allow for this individual's 2024 federal tax information or FTI to be directly transferred from the IRS to the FAFSA. So this consent is required by all students and contributors on the FAFSA for the student to be eligible for aid. So it's important that you accept and give consent and approval for that information to come over. What would happen is the IRS will transfer that information and populate those questions so you wouldn't have to manually enter any of your tax information. So it makes it much easier. So you'd want to scroll down and hit accept. Once you hit it accept, it's going to bring up a box and it will say that it's securely loading your information. And then once that's done, you'll get a confirmation and that will take you to the next step. For students, there are 6 sections of the FAFSA form to complete. There's personal circumstances, your demographics, financials, where you input your colleges, and your contributor invite, and a signature. The first section is your student personal circumstances. These are going to be questions that will determine your eligibility for federal aid. One of the first questions that you'll get asked is the student college or career school plans. This question is going to ask if you have ever been a degree seeking student for the school year that begins in 26-27. So it's going to ask for your grade level. So you'll pick first year freshman, second year sophomore, or other undergraduate for junior and beyond, or a graduate program. For first year freshmen, you want to make sure that you select that you are a first year freshman, even if you have enrolled or have received dual credit courses or have earned credit. So even if you have college credits, you haven't been a degree seeking student at an institution, so you would still be a first year freshman. This is really important for those high school seniors that are applying for the Promise Scholarship because that is part of the eligibility. So you want to make sure that this question is correct and that you choose first year freshman. Then I'll go on to your student personal circumstances. These questions will include your marital status, your college or career school plans, what college grade level you are, if you have a first bachelor's degree, your personal circumstances, including your dependency questions to determine if you have to provide parent information, or your homelessness status. So you would answer any of these questions. You would just click by any that apply. If none of the above apply, then you just click that button and continue. Then it's going to ask if the student has unusual circumstances that would prevent a dependent student from contacting the student's parents, or contacting their parents would pose a risk to the student. So this are in extreme circumstances, and there's some examples on this page of what would constitute as a student unusual circumstance. This does not include the parent's unwillingness to provide information on the FAFSA. It is important that if your student is dependent, that the parent does provide that information. So you would answer no and then move on to the next questions. If you answer yes to that previous question that you cannot provide parent information, then you would be considered provisionally independent. A provisionally independent can move through the FAFSA without providing parent information, and they could sign and submit their form. However, a financial aid administrator at the school will review your FAFSA and make a determination about a dependency override. So your school may require additional documentation to confirm your independent status. So you would want to keep a lookout on confirmation or communication from your school of any required additional documentation to confirm your provisionally independent status if you answer yes to the unusual circumstances question. Then the next question that's going to pop up is if you would like an unsubsidized loan only. So the student is asked if a financial aid administrator should determine their eligibility for a direct unsubsidized loan. This is an option if the student's parents are unwilling to provide information. So the answer is defaulted to no. And if you select yes, a warning will appear and the student will not be eligible for other forms of federal or state aid if they continue and say yes to that question. So if you say yes, it's going to bring up this little box. You would either want to return to the form and change that to no, or hit continue. So in most cases, we want it to say no, and we would continue to the next stage. So the next part is the student demographics. This is going to just ask information about your background and your family, and will not affect your SAI. So some of these questions are going to include the student's gender, the student's race, and ethnicity. One of the first questions is whether the student is a U.S. citizen. So they would answer yes or click on that and then hit continue. Another question would be the parent's educational status. This is whether either parent attended college or completed college. So you would answer that question and hit continue. And then this one is very important. It's going to ask the student's high school completion status. The question is, what will the student's high school completion status be at the beginning of the 26-27 school year? So I know that there may be a lot of high school seniors completing this right now, and you don't have your high school diploma in hand, but you will have one before you attend in the fall. So you want to make sure that you choose that you will have a high school diploma. If you choose that you have none of the above, it will make you ineligible for the West Virginia Higher Education Grant. So it's important that you put that you have a high school diploma, that you got a GED, or that you were homeschooled. If you do put that you have a high school diploma, then you will be prompted to select from which high school they did or they will graduate. The next section is going to be the student financials. This information should be imported from granting consent from the IRS Direct Data Exchange, but it may ask additional questions about the student's assets. Those student assets are going to be their cash savings and checking accounts. That would be anything in the student's name, any net worth of investments that would be in the student's name, and any net worth of businesses and farms. A change from the 25-26 FAFSA to this year's 26-27 FAFSA is that the law reinstated the exemption of a family farm and a small business from assets in the SAI calculation if the family business has 100 or fewer full-time employees, or the farm is where the family resides, or commercial fishing business and related expenses. So you would not have to provide that information if your family business has 100 or fewer employees, or the farm is where your family resides, or a commercial fishing business and related expenses. That is, again, reinstated for the 26-27 year. After the student inputs their financials, it's going to take you to the college and career school section. In this section, the student will be able to add up to 20 schools. You can add and remove schools after submitting the FAFSA. To find a school, you could search by the state, the name, or the school code. Each school listed will receive the student's FAFSA information. So we really encourage students to list every school that they're thinking about, even if they haven't applied yet. That way, they wouldn't have to go in and add a school if they decide to change their mind later. So definitely use up as many of those 20 schools as you can. The next section is the contributor invite. So this is where the student would invite the parent to complete their parent portion of the FAFSA form. You're going to ask, who is my contributor? If you go to studentaid.gov, there is a great flow chart that you can see here that asks yes or no questions that will determine who the student's contributor would be. So the first question is, are your biological or adoptive parents married to each other? If they are married to each other and they file taxes jointly, you only have to invite one parent. So only one parent would need the studentaid.gov account, and only one parent would need to be invited to contribute to the student's FAFSA form. If their biological or adoptive parents are married to each other but they filed taxes separately, then both parents would need a studentaid.gov account, and both parents would need to be invited. If the answer is no, it's going to ask if your biological or adoptive parents live together. If they do live together and they're unmarried, divorced, or separated, you would have to invite both parents. If the answer to that is no, they do not live together, then it's going to ask, did one parent provide more financial support than the other for the last 12 months? So if the answer is yes, then you invite the parent that provided the most support. If that parent is married or remarried and did not file taxes together with their spouse, then you would have to invite the parent and the step parent. If your parents share financial responsibility equally, then you would need to invite the parent with a greater income and assets. And if you're married or remarried and did not file taxes together, you would have to invite, again, the parent and the step parent. But there is a wizard that's part of the FAFSA form as well, so you can answer these yes or no questions or refer to that flow chart, and it will help determine who your contributor would be if you are a dependent student. There is a new process for the 26-27 FAFSA form to invite your contributor. For this year, the student will enter just an email address for the contributor and will send an invite. The student will confirm their contributor email with a pop-up window and then hit send invite again. They do not need the parent's social security number or date of birth as they had to in years prior. So this is a much simpler process. You just need the contributor's email. The student would input that email. It does not have to be the same email that the contributor used for their studentaid.gov account. It could be any email, but they would send that contributor invite. What will happen is the parent will receive an email inviting them to the student's FAFSA form. The parent can access the form a few different ways. They can accept the invitation in the email. They can also log into their studentaid.gov account and access it through their My Activity, or the student can just share the code and they could go to that login screen and log in with the code that can be shared directly with the parent. So there's a couple of different ways to get to the parent portion. Once the invite is sent, then the student is going to go to a review page. This is going to display all the responses that they had put into the form. If you would like to see all of the responses, you just hit expand all right there on the right side. To edit any response, you just click on the questions hyperlink and it'll take you right back to that page and you can make any corrections and make sure that all the information is correct. You can also see the status of the contributor down there at the bottom. It will have the email and the status of sent. Then the student is going to be presented with their signature page. This is where they complete their section and sign the form. So they would just click next to their name and click sign. And that's going to take them to a completion page. So it's going to say that it's pending submission, check with your contributor. So the student's portion is complete and it's just waiting on the parent contributor portion to be completed for the FAFSA to be fully submitted. So the parent is going to get an email that will invite them to contribute to the student's FAFSA. This is what that email looks like. If the parent selects accept invitation through that email link, it's going to take them straight to studentaid.gov. Like I said, there were a few different ways that you could access the form. That's the easiest. The parent would be taken from their email to the login page to enter the studentaid.gov account username and password. If the parent does not have a username or password, they can also create that account on this page. Once the parent accepts the invitation, then they put the invitation code. If the parent used the link from the email, it's going to automatically input that code. If they got to this a different way, they may need that code from the student's email or from their email. And then the parent selects submit. Then it's going to appear with a box that says, by accepting this invitation to your student's FAFSA form, you agree to share your information. So you would just hit accept and agree and go on into the parent portion. The parent sections are demographics, financials, and a signature. So it's super simple. The parent will need to give consent and approval, just like the student. All contributors must provide consent and approval for the student to be eligible for aid. Again, this allows for that FTI to transfer over. It makes that financial section much easier by pre-filling most of the questions. Again, once you click submit, it's going to say that it's securely importing your information. And then it's going to take you to the next section, which is the parent demographics. With this one, it's going to ask the parent's current marital status and the parent's state of residence. It is important that the parent report residency correctly for a dependent student to be eligible for state aid. Our programs do require both the student and the parent to be West Virginia residents, so you want to make sure that this is input correctly with the correct state and dates. And then it's going to take you to the parent finance section. The first question will be if the parent received any federal benefits. Those benefits here include the Earned Income Credit, federal housing assistance, free or reduced price school lunch. This one can trip some people up because some counties do receive the benefit countywide, but you only want to answer yes if your family would meet the qualifications otherwise. And then there's a list of other federal programs. If your family receives any of these, you would just just click the box next to it. If they receive none of them, you would hit none of these apply, and then hit continue to go to the next question. Then it's going to ask information about the parent's tax filing status. The FAFSA, it goes off of prior year income. So they're going to be looking at the parent's 2024 tax return, which should already be filed. So you would answer yes to these. If the parent is married and filed jointly, then they would answer yes to that. So you would just answer these based off the 2024 tax status. And then it's going to ask about the family size. This family size is going to be calculated from information that was transferred with the federal tax information. If for some reason your family size has changed, you can update that manually here if it needs corrected, but with the number of children or other dependents. Next question is going to ask the number in college. This would include any student or dependent that would be enrolled in college between July 1, 26 and June 30th, 27. You do not include the student's parents. This would be only dependents, children, or other dependents that you would list here. The next question is going to ask about the parent financials. If you received child support, you would put that figure here. Also, it may ask for the parent's assets. That will be the total cash amount of cash savings in your checking accounts. You do not include retirement accounts in that calculation. It's also going to ask for the current net worth of investments in real estate. Real estate does not include the home in which the parent lives. And it's going to ask about the current net worth of businesses and farms. And again, you do not include a business with 100 or fewer employees, farms where the family resides, or commercial fishing business and related expenses. So again, it's important that the parent report these correctly. If you see right next to the dollar figures, there's a little I with a circle around it. If you click on that, that's your help function, and it will list the things that you should include or not include in the calculation for these questions. Then it's going to ask for your other parent information. You just need the birth date of the spouse if your parents were married and they filed jointly. And then it's going to take you to the parent review page. The parent would review all their questions. Again, you could hit the expand all, make sure everything's in there correctly, and then go to the signature page where you just click next to your name and hit sign. And then once the parent completes their portion after the student has already completed, then that is going to submit the FAFSA form. So what's going to happen next? The student is going to get an email to their studentaid.gov account email that says all sections have been completed and that their FAFSA form has been submitted. The student can track the status of their form by logging into their studentaid.gov account, and the student may receive some school communications because once that FAFSA is processed, that information is going to go to all schools that were listed in the schools section. There are some FAFSA processing results. The application is processed in order it's received, so that usually takes around 72 hours if completed online. So you want to make sure that you allow ample time for processing. So you don't want to wait to the 11th hour to file your FAFSA form. You want to make sure that this gets completed well before deadlines like March 1st. A student will receive an email with a link to review their FAFSA submission summary, or FSS online. The student can review the FSS and make corrections if needed. A paper form is available, but it can take weeks to months for it to be processed. If the student logs into their studentaid.gov account, you could see different FAFSA processing results. If there's action needed, then the status would be a draft status where your section of the FAFSA form is incomplete. It could be in process or in progress where you provide consent and approval and signed your form, but the form needs submitted, or there could be another action required, like you're missing consent, approval, a signature, or the form was processed and a correction is required. So you want to make sure that you check the status to see if there's anything outstanding that you may have to submit. If no action is needed, the status would be in review. That means that your FAFSA form was submitted and is not yet processed. And then once it goes through the processing, it will show processed, and your application was processed successfully. The FAFSA submission summary does have 4 sections. It has the eligibility review, the FAFSA form answers, the school information, and your next steps. So this information is going to be in the email as well as on the studentaid.gov account, and you do have the ability to print the summary. What will happen after the FAFSA is processed through the FAFSA processing system or FPS, they're going to send those results to all the colleges that were listed on the FAFSA. Those results are called an Institutional Student Information Record, or ISIR, ISIR. So the college is going to receive that ISIR record, and they may request additional information. There could be additional documentation that must be received before the student may be eligible for aid, and the colleges will use this information to build your financial aid offer letter. So most colleges may even require that you file your FAFSA and they receive that record before sending out your offer letter. We at the West Virginia Education Policy Commission receive the record for all West Virginia residents and students who list West Virginia institution on their FAFSA. So we should also receive a copy of that. So if you are on your West Virginia SAM or Student Aid Management account, and you're checking one of your applications that require a FAFSA, it should show completed once we have received that ISIR record and linked it with your application. There are corrections that may be made to the FAFSA. You could do that by logging into studentaid.gov or submitting documentation to the college's financial aid office. Some common errors or corrections are if there's a missing signature for either the parent or the student, that high school completion status question, the college grade level question, or adding another college. But you want to make sure that if you do make a correction, you want to save all the way out to the signatures to create a new transaction. So we've talked about this quite a bit, what the Student Aid Index, or the SAI, is. So the SAI represents the amount of money that a student and their family could reasonably contribute toward a student's education in one academic year. So it's going to take all the information that was reported on the FAFSA and calculate a dollar amount, or your SAI. And that SAI is used to determine the student's eligibility for federal and state need-based aid. The SAI is not how much a student and their family will pay. That's a common misconception. That's not your bill. That's just a number or a dollar amount that determines the student's eligibility for federal and state need-based aid. There's also a process called verification. Verification is a federal financial aid process that ensures that information submitted on the FAFSA is correct. The U.S. Department of Education randomly selects a percentage of FAFSAs for the verification process. The college will reach out to request required documentation. You will have to complete this process separately for each college if you are selected, so check your email. You can also check on your FAFSA submission summary to see if you were selected for verification and what next steps you may need to do. A student is not eligible for federal or state aid until verification is complete. So if you are selected, you want to make sure that you get that documentation to your school as soon as possible to complete this process. Your school may request a variation of different documents. They could request a verification worksheet, your IRS tax return, your W-2s, notarized statements, or even court documentation. So you want to reach out to your school if you are selected for verification. As we said before, the FAFSA does go off of financials from prior year. So there is a process for special circumstances or professional judgment. Now, this is different than the unusual circumstances that we talked about earlier. Special circumstances are financial situations. Unusual circumstances are for personal dependency overrides. So there are unique conditions that exist that cannot be documented on your FAFSA form. A student should contact the institution's financial aid office for more information about this process. Each institution may have a different process or come to a different decision regarding a special circumstance or professional judgment decision, but those decisions are final and cannot be appealed to the U.S. Department of Education. Some things that may Require a special circumstance or professional judgment would be a change in employment status, income, or assets, a change in the student or parent's marital status, medical, dental, or nursing home expenses not covered by insurance, tuition expenses at an elementary or secondary school, child or dependent care expenses, or even the parent or spouse death. But like I said before, each school is going to be different as to what they would accept, what documentation they would need, and what decision they would come to. So if there's any change financially from 2024 to now, I would definitely encourage you to contact the school's financial aid office and see if you'd qualify for a professional judgment or special circumstance review. We do have a ton of resources at our website, which is cfwv.com/FAFSA. We update this regularly with anything that comes out from the Department of Education. So there's videos, tutorials, worksheets, everything on our website. So if you have any other questions or need additional review, definitely visit that website. We're also available via phone. If you have questions about your studentaid.gov account, you would need to contact the U.S. Department of Education at their 800 number, which is 1-800-433-3243, or at studentaid.gov. If you have questions about the FAFSA process or need help or questions about financial aid, you can definitely contact our office. Our number here is 1-877-987-7664. Or you can visit us at cfwv.com. Thank you for joining me for this step-by-step walkthrough of the 26-27 FAFSA. I hope this presentation has helped simplify the process and give you the confidence to complete the form. If you have questions, need clarification, or want additional guidance, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help support you every step of the way. Thank you for watching, and I hope this guide makes the FAFSA process smoother as you plan for the year ahead. Have a great day.